Before we begin, just a quick note. This video doesn't use horror footage or jump scares. Instead, I've kept it simple. Just real chilling stories and soft rain sounds in the background. Because sometimes, all it takes is a voice and your own imagination to feel fear. So if you're lying in bed, trying to sleep, just close your eyes, listen, and let the stories unfold. I've never shared this story before, mostly because no one would believe it. But I still think about it. Every time it rains, every time I hear branches crack outside my window at night, every time I hear a dog bark in the distance. This happened about 3 years ago, in early October. Me, my girlfriend Hannah, and two close friends, Kevin and Melissa, decided to rent a remote cabin for a quiet weekend getaway, somewhere off-grid, with no Wi-Fi, no cell service, just peace, firewood, and the smell of pine. The place we found wasn't on Airbnb. Kevin found it through an old forum where off-grid travelers exchanged hidden gems. The cabin sat right on the edge of a dense patch of forest in northern Washington. It looked worn down in the pictures, but charming in that rustic kind of way. Cheap, too. It was the kind of cabin that hadn't been touched in years. Not by tourists, not by locals. Just there, aging quietly in the woods. And that's what made it perfect for us. We wanted to disappear for a while. We packed our things, loaded up Kevin's Jeep, and headed north with my dog Max, sitting quietly in the back seat. He was a big black lab, gentle as ever. Never barked unless he had a reason. The first few hours were fine. Clear skies, cold air, that slow hum of the highway. We stopped for gas at a small town station where the old man behind the counter asked, "You folks headed up into Bear Creek?" Kevin smiled and said, "Yeah, somewhere near there. Just a cabin in the woods." The man paused, narrowed his eyes slightly, and said, "Keep your fire burning. Nights get strange up there." We laughed it off. Later that evening, we reached the forest road. It was just a long, narrow trail of gravel, eaten on both sides by trees leaning too close. You had to drive slow. No light reached the trail, except the Jeep's beams. Max started to shift in the back seat. I remember that clearly. He let out a low whine, not a bark, just discomfort. When we reached the cabin, it looked exactly like the photos, maybe worse. The wood was aged and darkened, with moss growing along the bottom edges. The roof looked like it would creak under a heavy gust. The windows were too dark to see through, and one of the shutters hung off its hinge. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was Max. He refused to leave the car. We opened the back door, called him by name, tried to coax him out with treats. But he wouldn't budge. He stayed there, tail stiff, eyes fixed on the cabin door. He let out one bark, then a low growl. I'd never seen him act like that before. We thought maybe he just didn't like the new environment. So we left the door open, carried our bags inside, and let him come out when he was ready. The air inside the cabin was musty. Old wood, burnt dust, something else underneath it all. It smelled stagnant. The kind of air that hasn't moved in a long time. The kind of air that doesn't feel empty, just unused or unwatched. The fireplace was functional. The kitchen had dry wood cabinets, a rusted kettle, and a small table with 4 uneven chairs. Everything creaked, the floorboards, the steps, the ceilings. There were 2 bedrooms upstairs and a small pull-out downstairs. Melissa chose the upstairs room that faced the trees. Hannah and I took the one across from hers. Kevin, being Kevin, claimed the downstairs couch, saying he liked being close to the beer cooler. As night fell, We finally convinced Max to step out. Only after I went out, kneeled beside him, and stayed there for 5 full minutes in silence. He walked toward the cabin, slowly, reluctantly. But as soon as he crossed the threshold, he stopped, turned around and walked back outside. Then he barked, loud and sharp, 3 times. That night, none of us really slept. Not because anything happened, but because of something subtler than that. A tension in the air. It was quiet, too quiet. Not forest quiet, not the chirping of insects or the rustling of leaves. This was silence that shouldn't exist in the woods. No birds, no wind, no distant owls, just stillness. And in that stillness, I heard Max pacing outside the cabin, back and forth, like he was guarding us, like something was watching. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of the kettle whistling downstairs. Kevin had gotten up early and started boiling water for coffee. The fire was already going, a low, crackling glow that made the living room feel halfway alive. But what struck me was that Max wasn't in sight. I stepped outside in just a hoodie, scanning the edge of the trees where he had spent the night. His paw prints were still there in the dirt, pacing in wide, cautious circles. But he wasn't. No barking, no running, no sound of his collar jingling, just forest and fog. I whistled. Nothing. I called his name louder. Still nothing. Just when I was about to head deeper into the trees, I heard the faintest crunching sound. And then, Max stepped out. His fur was damp, his ears low, eyes wide. He was staring back toward the trees, not at me, like something had followed him all night, and he wasn't sure it was gone yet. Inside, we had breakfast, burnt toast, instant eggs, and black coffee. Melissa looked uneasy. Hannah kept rubbing her arm. Kevin cracked dumb jokes, but even he seemed muted. At some point, Melissa said, "Did anyone else hear the whistling last night?" We all stopped. Kevin raised an eyebrow. "The kettle?" "No," she said quietly. "Outside, around 3 a.m., like someone was standing just past the trees, whistling a tune, over and over again." I didn't say anything, but Hannah's hand found mine under the table. She whispered, "I thought I was dreaming." That day, we tried to brush it off, went for a short hike around the area, snapped photos of moss-covered rocks, old rotted stumps, and weirdly straight lines of trees that looked too perfect. At one point, Kevin wandered off the trail for a minute and called us over. He'd found something. Buried half under a thick pile of leaves and branches was an old metal wind chime, tangled and rusted, but with little carvings on each hanging bar, symbols, faded ones, circles, arrows, a spiral. He shook it once. The sound it made wasn't pleasant, dull, off-key, like broken glass being stirred in water. Max barked immediately, then growled. Kevin laughed. "Relax, dude. It's just a chime." I remember saying, "Don't bring that inside," but Kevin brought it anyway. That night, the air changed. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to Max growling again, low and steady. I sat up, looked out the window, and saw nothing, just darkness and trees. Then I heard footsteps, not inside, not on the porch, but out in the woods. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. I held my breath. I wanted to wake Hannah, but something, I don't know what, told me not to move. Like if I moved, it would know I was awake. Then the footsteps stopped, and I heard whistling. The same off-tune melody Melissa had described. It didn't come from one direction. It seemed to echo from all sides, like the forest itself was humming it. And in the middle of it, Max started barking furiously. The next second, silence. I bolted up, rushed to the front door, and swung it open. Max was gone. We grabbed flashlights and ran out barefoot into the cold. The beams cut through the fog like dull knives. We called his name over and over. No response. Kevin ran ahead toward the clearing, and that's when I heard Hannah scream. Not loud, not panicked, just broken. Like a sound someone makes when they see something they can't process. I turned and saw her staring at something nailed to a tree. It was Max's collar, hung on a rusty nail. Fresh scratch marks on the bark all around it. Underneath, carved deep into the wood, were the same symbols from the chime. Melissa whispered, "That wasn't here before." And then the forest went silent again. That night, none of us slept. We stayed in the living room, with the fire burning full, doors locked, windows covered. Kevin sat with a poker in his hand. Hannah didn't speak. Melissa kept crying quietly. Outside, the wind picked up. But it wasn't wind. It was breathing. Long, slow. Exhaled from somewhere just beyond the cabin walls. I sat there gripping the flashlight, staring into the fireplace, wondering if we'd made the biggest mistake of our lives. The fire burned low by 4 a.m. No one had spoken for hours. We just sat there, still, alert, listening. At some point, Kevin stood up and muttered, "I need to piss." I told him to wait until morning. He didn't respond. He just grabbed the flashlight, stepped outside, and closed the door behind him. We waited. 2 minutes passed, then 5, no sound. I stood and walked toward the door, cracked it open, and called out, "Kev." Nothing, just fog rolling low across the dirt. Then I heard it, the sound of someone running, fast. Heavy footsteps slapping the ground, crashing through wet leaves. But they weren't running toward the cabin. They were circling it. Once, then twice. Then a loud slam against the back wall. The whole cabin shook. I shut the door and stepped back. A few seconds later, Kevin came in through the front, pale and out of breath. His shirt was torn at the shoulder. He had scratches down one arm, like tree branches had clawed at him. He looked at us like we were strangers, and then he said, "Something out there was mimicking me." He told us he'd stepped into the trees and heard his own voice behind him. Not just similar, exactly his voice, saying the same words he'd said a few seconds earlier, like an echo that repeated after the sound had stopped, like the forest had memorized his tone and played it back. And then it laughed, not a man's laugh, something else, dry, hollow, a laugh without joy. He ran, but the thing followed, and he swears, when he turned to look, he saw himself standing between the trees, same clothes, same torn sleeve, just watching. That was the moment we stopped trying to act like things were okay. Melissa said she was done. She wanted to leave now, in the dark, even if it meant driving blind. Hannah agreed. I nodded. Kevin just stood near the window, staring out. We started packing what we could, shaking hands, quick movements. But when we opened the cabin door, the fog had thickened. It wasn't natural anymore. It felt like a wall, like a curtain of wet smoke that refused to let the light pass through. We stepped out anyway. The Jeep's windshield was cracked, not shattered, cracked from the inside like something had hit it from within. Keys were still in the ignition. The car wouldn't start. Kevin tried twice, 3 times. Engine turned, sputtered, then silence. Then we all heard it. Footsteps in the fog, coming closer, and with them, our own voices, repeating things we'd said earlier in the day. Kevin yelling, "It's just a chime." Melissa laughing, "Don't open that wine, it's cursed." Me whispering, "Max, come on, boy." Hannah softly saying, "I thought I was dreaming." All our words, looping, playing over and over, as if the woods were remembering us. We ran back inside, locked every door, nailed 2 chairs against the front entrance, blocked the windows with whatever furniture we had. Then the knocking started. Not on the doors, not on the walls, underneath us, from the floorboards. Soft at first, tap, tap, tap. Then louder, like fists pounding upward. And then, silence. Melissa began praying. Kevin sat against the door, poker still in his hand, eyes half shut. Hannah clung to me and whispered, "This place is alive." I didn't argue. The wind had picked up again, but only in short, violent bursts, like something was trying to breathe through the walls. And somewhere in that deep silence between the gusts, I heard something I'll never forget. A bark, not loud, not urgent, just one distant bark from deep within the woods. And I swear to God, it was Max. I should have gone after him. That's what I kept thinking, sitting on that floor, Hannah's hand in mine, her fingers trembling. Max was out there, or something that sounded like Max, and I didn't move. None of us slept that night. We just sat in silence, listening. The knocks beneath the floor had stopped, but the feeling hadn't. It was like the walls were still breathing, watching. At some point, maybe around dawn, the fog outside lightened a little. Not cleared, just thinned enough to see a few feet beyond the porch. That's when Melissa saw it. She'd pulled the curtain back, just a crack, and froze. "Don't look," she whispered. So of course we all looked. Standing at the tree line, maybe 20 feet from the cabin, was a dog, not Max. It was shaped like him, same size, same fur, but it wasn't him. It was standing perfectly still, too still, his head tilted slightly, like it was listening, or trying to remember something. Then it opened its mouth, and what came out wasn't a bark. It was Kevin's voice. "Don't bring that inside." Word for word, perfect tone, same breath pattern. It spoke again, this time in my voice. "Max, come on, boy." Hannah stepped back. Melissa started crying. Kevin just stood there whispering, "That's not possible." The dog turned slowly, not like an animal, more like a puppet being rotated on a string, and walked back into the trees. We didn't follow. We waited until mid-morning. The fog lifted a little more, just enough for us to feel like maybe, just maybe, we could leave. The Jeep still wouldn't start. Kevin slammed the steering wheel. Battery was fine, gas was full. It just refused, so we packed only what we could carry and started walking. The forest was quiet. Not peaceful quiet, expecting quiet, like something new we were finally leaving. The trail back to the gravel road should have taken 20 minutes. It took over 2 hours. We kept seeing the same broken stump, the same forked branch. It was like the woods were looping. At one point, Melissa stopped and whispered, "We passed this rock before. Look, my shoe print." Sure enough, there it was, her print from earlier. We hadn't gone anywhere. Kevin suggested splitting up for 5 minutes to see if anyone could find another trail. I said no, but he was already walking off. 5 minutes turned to 15, then 30. We called for him. Nothing. Then we heard footsteps coming back. Melissa ran toward the sound. Then she stopped. A figure stepped out from the trees. It looked like Kevin. Same jacket, same jeans. But his eyes were wrong. Too wide, too still. No light in them. And his mouth hung slightly open. Then it said, in a broken voice, "I found something." Melissa stepped back. I pulled her away. The figure just stood there, unmoving, repeating itself. "I found something." Then it stepped back into the trees, not turned, just stepped backward, slowly, vanishing into the woods. We ran, no direction, no path, just away. We ran until our legs gave out, until Melissa collapsed from exhaustion, until Hannah's lips were blue from cold. Then, just before dusk, we saw a break in the trees, a fence, and behind it, a road. We made it to the road, waving like maniacs at the first car that passed. It was an old green pickup driven by a man in his 60s. He saw the fear in our eyes and didn't ask many questions. Just said, "You came out of Bear Creek Woods?" We nodded. He stared ahead and said, "Ain't the first time I've seen folks come out looking like that." He dropped us at the sheriff's station. We tried explaining about Kevin, about Max, about the thing that looked like both. They sent a team into the woods. They never found the cabin. Not a single board, not a nail, no trace of a building ever existing there. They did find Kevin's torn jacket, hanging from a tree, and Max's collar buried half a foot into the dirt, next to 3 others just like it, different names, different dogs, all from different years. We left the next morning, never went back. Hannah doesn't talk about it. Melissa moved across the country. We text every few months, but we never mention the woods. Sometimes, when I walk past tall trees or hear the wind move through the branches in a certain way, I think about that voice, my own, whispering back to me from the forest. And sometimes, when it rains, I still hear that bark. It's been over 2 years, but I still can't close my eyes in silence. Even now, as I sit here in my apartment, with city lights outside my window, traffic in the distance, heater humming quietly, I find myself reaching for noise. Rain sounds, crackling fire ambience, static, anything but silence. Because silence reminds me of that forest. They never found Kevin. Not a body, not a footprint, not a trace. They combed that area with dogs, drones, and even helicopters. But according to the search team, the location we described doesn't exist. The GPS coordinates we marked didn't lead to anything, just endless forest and a few rotting logs. The old man who drove us to the station came back later, told the sheriff something under his breath. I saw the way the deputy looked at him, like he already knew, like they all knew. Hannah and I tried staying together for a while after it happened. We moved in together, thought maybe being close would help us forget, heal, but it didn't work. Every time she walked into a quiet room, she'd freeze. Sometimes she'd wake up in the middle of the night, whispering, "Is he back?" At first I thought she meant Kevin, but one night she said it clearly. I saw the dog again. It was standing in the hallway, watching. Melissa vanished from social media 6 months later, just disappeared. "Last time we spoke," she said. "I hear it when I turn off the shower. That whistle, same as the one in the woods." I believed her. She blocked my number after that. Maybe for her own peace, or maybe because I reminded her of it all. As for me, I tried therapy. It helped in the way a wet towel helps a fire, briefly, and only at the edges. I stopped talking about it when I saw the look in my therapist's eyes. Not disbelief, not concern, but recognition, like he'd heard something similar before. A few weeks ago, I found a box in my storage unit. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside was Max's leash, still coiled the same way I'd left it, still with a piece of his black fur stuck in the clip. I held it for a long time. Thought about how he tried to warn us, how he barked, growled, refused to enter that place. He knew, and I didn't listen. That night, I fell asleep to rain sounds playing through my phone. just like I always do. But around 3 a.m., I woke up. The audio had stopped. Phone was off. Battery drained, even though it was plugged in. I sat up. The room was dark, and then I heard it. From the corner of the room, a bark. One soft, familiar bark. And then a whistle, off tune, repeating, just like before. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just stared into the dark, waiting for it to end. It didn't. Instead, I heard a voice, my own, repeating the same thing I'd said 2 years ago. Max, come on, boy. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. How could I? Even after the sound stopped, the whistle, the bark, the echo of my own voice, the feeling stayed, like the air in the room had changed, thickened, tilted, like I wasn't alone. And it wasn't just fear. It was shame, guilt, that leash in the box. I burned it the next morning, not out of anger, out of helplessness, out of the awful realization that I should have turned back, should have believed the dog. For a while after that night, things were quiet. No more sounds, no more dreams, no whistle. I started believing maybe it was stress, trauma, a trick of a broken mind trying to fill silence with something familiar. I was wrong. 2 weeks ago, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, no stamp, just an envelope, sealed and slipped under my apartment door. Inside was a single photo. It was faded, curled at the edges, a snapshot of that old cabin in the woods. But there was something different. In the photo, there were 5 people standing on the porch, not 4. I stared at it for an hour. All the faces were clear. Mine, Hannah's, Melissa's, Kevin's. And a 5th face, blurred, distorted, tall, thin, smiling. I don't remember anyone else being there. I flipped the photo over. On the back, written in pencil, were the words, "I found something." That night, I heard footsteps in the hallway again. Soft, dragging, like bare feet on hardwood. I didn't move, just laid there, frozen. Then I heard the doorknob turn, even though it was locked. Not rattled, not jiggled. Turn. But the door never opened. I stayed like that, stiff, staring at the ceiling, until morning. When I finally got up and walked to the door, I noticed something strange. Right where the light hit the bottom edge were paw prints, damp, faint, leading into the room. I started sleeping with the lights on again after that. Started keeping music or TV on low volume at all times. Even bought a cat, thinking maybe it would help. It didn't. She just stares at the corners now, constantly. A week later, I got another envelope. Inside was a collar, not Max's, but it was the same make, same leather, same size. Only this one had no tag, no name, just the same carved symbol, the spiral, burned into the inside. I tried ignoring it. Didn't open the envelope after that. Didn't look at what was inside. I was done. But 2 nights ago, I saw Kevin. I was walking back from the grocery store nearly midnight when I saw someone across the street, standing under a flickering streetlight. He was just standing there, still, head tilted. I froze. Then he raised one hand and waved, not excited, not frantic, just one slow wave. And in my own voice, from across the street, I heard, "Max, come on, boy." I blinked, and he was gone. I don't talk to anyone about this anymore. Hannah moved away. Melissa. Wherever she is, I hope she's forgotten. But I haven't, because now it comes when I sleep. Not in dreams, but in that strange moment when I'm just about to drift off, when my thoughts slow, when my breath evens out, when my guard is down. That's when I hear it, not outside, inside. The soft patter of paws on wood, a slow, uneven whistle, and my own voice, whispering my dog's name again and again. I don't think it ever wanted us dead. I think it wanted us remembered. It wanted to become part of us, and I think it succeeded. Do you know what it feels like when you start questioning your own voice? When you hear yourself say something, but you don't remember saying it? That's been happening to me lately. Little moments, subtle things. I'll walk into the kitchen and find the faucet running. I'll come back from the bathroom and the TV's on a static channel, even though I haven't used the remote. I'll hear my own voice from the other room. Not loud, just muttering. Fragments of sentences I don't recall speaking. Sometimes it's just one word. Max. It's not just at night anymore. It's in daylight now. Once, I was in the elevator in my building. Middle of the day. A man stepped in, nodded politely, then paused, sniffed, and said, "Do you have a dog?" I said no. He looked confused. "Weird. Smells like wet fur in here." 3 days ago, I woke up with mud on my hands, no explanation. The bed was dirty, sheets damp. My feet had scratches across the ankles. I checked the door, locked, windows, locked. But my balcony had footprints, paw prints, fresh. I live on the 3rd floor. That's when I realized something. I was bringing it back, every time I remembered, every time I whispered his name, every time I told this story, even to myself. It got louder. It fed on memory, on guilt, on narration. It wanted to be repeated. I haven't told anyone this, but a part of me wonders, what if that cabin never existed? What if the entire forest was just a space built from our own fears, a place that mimics? What if the thing that got Kevin wasn't trying to kill him, but replace him, like a recording that slowly overwrites the tape? What if right now I'm not the same person who walked into that forest? What if it's already speaking through me? I've tested myself. I started recording everything I say, every night. Sometimes I wake up, check the file, and hear myself talking, but I have no memory of it. And the words? They're never full sentences, just phrases. My voice sounds wrong. Found something. Come on, boy. I'm cold. And once, just once, I heard myself laugh. Not my laugh. That hollow, broken forest laugh. Now I can't even trust my own reflection. I'll walk past the hallway mirror and see myself looking back, not quite in sync, like it's watching, waiting for me to look away first. Last night I saw my reflection smile. I wasn't smiling. I've stopped telling people about it, because maybe that's what it wants, to be told, to be remembered, spread, shared, like a virus made of memory. Even now as I write this, I keep checking behind me, not for footsteps, not for voices, for me, for another version of me, one that's already empty inside, smiling. So if you've come this far, if you're still listening, if my voice feels like yours, if the hair on the back of your neck just stood up for no reason, ask yourself, do you remember every word you've ever spoken? Because the woods do, and they're listening. Last weekend, I got an email. No subject, no sender, just a link to a video file. The file name was a string of random numbers, except when I opened it, it showed a timestamp, 1998-10-21, the year that family died in that house. But the house was never real, right? I should have deleted it. Instead, I watched. It opened with static, analog static, like from a VHS. Then a frame came into focus. The same cabin, same wood grain porch, same doorway we walked through. And standing on the porch was a woman, maybe late 30s, holding a child, both looking straight at the camera, not blinking. Then, in the distance, the dog barked. Once, twice. The woman slowly turned her head toward the sound. The screen glitched, froze, and then it ended. 5 seconds of nothing. Then a voice, low, ragged, whispered, "Don't bring it inside." That same night, I woke up to my front door wide open. I never leave it open. I live alone. There were paw prints on the floor, again. This time, they weren't leading in. They were leading out, as if something had been living inside all along. And now I hear it everywhere. On subways, in elevators, in stairwells, in the pause between songs, in the breath before I fall asleep. That whistle, always the same tune, slightly off, slightly wrong. Sometimes I think it's humming with me. Not behind me, not following me, inside me. I've started recording these things now, not for anyone else, for myself, to prove I'm still me, to make sure my voice still sounds like mine, to check for things I don't remember saying. Sometimes, when I play the recordings back, there are extra voices. One night I heard Kevin saying, "I found something." Another night, Hannah crying. And once, Max whimpering. But the worst was yesterday. I was playing back a voice note I left myself at 2:45 a.m. I'd said just one sentence. I'm not sure how long I've been gone. The tone was mine, but it wasn't me. Not really, because I don't remember recording it. And when I listened closely, I could hear something else under the voice. A breath, a slow, heavy breath, like someone standing right beside the microphone, listening, smiling, waiting. I don't know what to do anymore. Can't move, can't sleep, can't forget. Even silence isn't safe, especially silence, because in silence, it comes back clearer, sharper, closer. I've thought about burning everything, the tapes, the box, my laptop, but I know it wouldn't matter, because this thing, whatever it is, doesn't live in objects. It lives in moments, in guilt, in memory, in echo, in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Sometimes I think the real reason only 2 of us made it back is because the forest didn't need all 4. Just enough to carry the story, to tell it, to share it, and now I'm sharing it with you. So if you're still here, still listening, ask yourself, did the voice in this story ever stop sounding like mine? Or did it start sounding like yours? Because that's how it passes on. Not like a scream, not like a curse, but like a soft exhale in the dark, drifting between listeners. And once you've heard it, it's already a part of you. That's the thing no one tells you about stories. They aren't just things we consume. Sometimes they consume us. They wait for the quiet, for the stillness, for the moment your breathing slows and your thoughts stop bouncing around. That's when it slips in, not with terror, but with recognition. I see it everywhere now, not just in mirrors, but in people's eyes, in background reflections, in photos I didn't take, in dreams I don't remember entering. Always the same figure, tall, grey, slightly smiling, just enough to make you feel like you've seen it before. A few nights ago, I passed by an alley near my apartment. Nothing strange. But as I walked by, I saw something written on the brick wall in what looked like charcoal. He brought it back. The handwriting looked familiar. Too familiar. When I reached out to touch it, the wall was warm, like someone had just written it. I don't know how long I've been telling this story. It started as a recording, then a memory. Now, I think I'm stuck inside it. Every time I try to stop, I feel it tighten around me, like cold breath around my neck. It doesn't want an ending. It wants a continuation. And the only way it continues is through you. If you think this is fiction, good. If you're planning to forget it, even better. But if something about this felt too real, if you find yourself looking over your shoulder tonight, if your dog starts growling at the door again, if you hear a whistle with no source, then you'll know it's already with you. Just don't speak its name. Don't call out into the dark. Don't try to remember that cabin. And whatever you do, don't listen to this story twice. I haven't left my apartment in 3 days. There's no reason. But somehow I know. If I open that door, it'll be there. Not standing outside, inside, waiting to come back in. The lights flicker every night at the same time, 2:45 a.m. The same time I left that voice note. The same time Kevin's watch stopped working in the forest. The same time we heard Max bark and then silence. There's no pattern. And yet, everything is a pattern. You start to lose pieces of yourself. I can't remember what my real laugh sounds like anymore. I avoid mirrors now, not out of fear, but confusion. Because every reflection pauses just a moment longer than I do, smiles a little wider, tilts its head like it's studying me, trying to decide if I'm ready. Maybe I am. You might be wondering why I'm still telling this, why I'm sharing it with you, why I keep pressing record even when I should be forgetting. The answer is simple. Because that house, that forest, that whistle, it doesn't want silence. It doesn't want to be buried. It wants a voice. And tonight, it's using mine. But tomorrow, who knows? Maybe next, it'll use yours. Maybe it already has. Maybe you'll wake up tonight, grab your phone, and find a recording you don't remember making. You'll press play and hear your own voice whispering something you've never said. Something like, "We should have left when the dog barked." And maybe, just maybe, you'll hear something else in the background. A slow breath, a faint whistle, a second voice, smiling. So if this story ever replays in your mind, if it comes back to you in the shower, or in your sleep, or in that moment between dreaming and waking, don't speak it out loud. Don't try to remember the house. Don't try to find the forest. Let it fade, or pass it on. But know this. Once you've heard the voice, it never really stops. It just waits. That's it for tonight. I upload new scary stories every single night, always with soft rain in the background and no jump scares. So if you're someone who likes falling asleep to horror, consider subscribing. And if you're already part of this little community, thank you for being here. Sleep well.